Chris Kaufman is here, and this is kind of weird. It only took on, and this is 3 yards per carry. I'm Alfredo Artiaga. Simon Clancy is here. Chris Kaufman is here. And this is weird. We're on this new app called YouTube, which is pretty interesting because you get to be kind of like on screen and get video. It only took us 8 years to find this, but people tell me it's pretty cool. Your thoughts, Simon, on this new app and this new iteration of 3 yards per carry?
Now that I've finally seen what you two freaks look like, it's like I don't want any part of this. It's like, wow, I thought you were both like really beautiful, kind of blonde, and look at the mess I've got to deal with.
Yeah, no, it's not good. Chris, it only took us 8 years. Anything you want to say to our new YouTube audience? What they can expect this season? What can they expect from our podcast?
Well, I think the YouTubes is supposed to be where you can find the video of Janet Jackson's like wardrobe malfunction. So now that we're on here, I want to look that up maybe.
Yeah, and we got to be careful with our off-color jokes or anything like that. Although we can always edit that. Like that's the great thing about YouTube. That's the great thing about the edit button. But anyway, we're going to be talking Colts Dolphins today. And as always, this show is brought to you by 305-800-PAIN. Just like the Dolphins kick off the season, you need to be ready too. After an accident, your first move should be calling 305-800-PAIN. Better Business Bureau accredited with an A+ rating. Your car accident, personal injury specialists. Fast connection with trusted doctors and attorneys. Always ready to take your call 24/7. Again, that's 305-800-PAIN. 305-800-PAIN. All right, we're going to follow the same format that we always follow for these preview shows. We're going to start off with the Dolphins when they have the ball. It's not as easy as saying, okay, just run the damn ball. No, they're going to have some type of balanced attack against these Colts because the Colts are not devoid of talent. You got Leotu Latu on the edge, Kwity Paye, Buckner. I like Zaire Franklin. A lot of people don't like Zaire Franklin. And that secondary, starting with Kenny Moore, is sneaky good. Not great, but sneaky good. There's one, I guess he sticks out like a sore thumb, and he will stick out like a sore thumb wearing 25 on Sunday. But I guess we'll get to that as well. But let's start with the Dolphins when they have the ball. What does Miami have to accomplish? How do they go about attacking the Colts? Simon.
Well, I mean, I think it's really interesting because I think the Dolphins' offense is obviously, I think, is going to be a strength, certainly the skill positions. It just depends on what Mike McDaniel wants to do. We have no idea what this kind of new iteration of his offense is going to be this year. And we saw, a couple of years ago, it was kind of those sort of kamikaze-style RPOs with Tua pushing the ball down the field. Last year, it was much more condensed, almost using the bubble screen and the quick screen game and the passing game, the short kind of little flare outs and Texas routes as an extension of the run game. So what is going to be his, new thing this season? I think that's what we've all been talking about this on our Discord. We've been talking about on WhatsApp. What's that going to look like this year? And also, like, how are people going to line up? Who's playing at tight end? The big mystery. Is Darren Waller going to, pull the Scooby-Doo mask off and he's going to reveal an actual human being and a player who can actually contribute, or will he get cut by week 2? We don't kind of know. But also, what's going to happen at the running back position? And I think that's the thing that I find most intriguing. Really, is that we kind of know what we're getting with Tua. What you're getting with Hill and Waddle. To a lesser extent, Westbrook and Keeney. What you're getting with Malik. But how's that running game going to work? Is it going to be Devon Achane? Is it going to be Ollie Gordon? Is it going to be a mix of the two? How's that going to play out? And how are they going to be integrated into the passing game? And will Gordon get more carries, running between the tackles when you're going up against those, those bigger interior defensive linemen that the Colts have, the DeForest Buckner, one of the most consistent interior defenders in the NFL over the last, I don't know how long he's been in the league, 10 years, 8 years, 9 years, so how the Dolphins handle the run game. And I do really think, I don't know what you think, Chris, but I do really believe that Mike McDaniel is going to want to try and set a bit of a toughness tone by running the ball at the heart of the Colts. I don't think their linebacker unit is particularly good. And I think trying to attack and take on and bully that front seven by using that sort of slightly revamped offensive line, using the heft of Ollie Gordon, I think that's what we'll see early on. Obviously, the quick passing game will we'll come into it, Chris. But I do think that trying to establish the run early, getting that offensive line some quick wins, and then obviously that brings defenders back into the box and opens up the passing game down the field, which we struggled so mightily to do last year.
I think you've arrived at it as for what's going to happen in this game, what they're going to look to establish, and that is what everybody thinks. It's the ground game. This is a season that they're trying to get back to some basics that way. This is Mike McDaniel's background as a run coordinator. He throws out a lot of things that make it very hard to defend the run for defensive coordinators, and he'll go ahead and test his own mettle that way. So they're going to look to establish themselves physically and in the run game, but especially because the weakness here, where you really want to go after the Colts, is in the secondary on that defense. So I think that with that said, their secondary against our skill position players, against the Dolphins' skill position players, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, obviously. Now we're talking about Nick Westbrook-Akine and Malik Washington. They're going to have to pull back. They're going to have to pull back just like everybody does against the Dolphins. They're going to pull back their safeties. They're going to keep things capped. It's a proven successful way to attack the Miami Dolphins, particularly when the Dolphins are on the road, as they are here. And so that's what the Colts are going to do, and the Dolphins are going to have to go with the run game and stick with it. And so I have a feeling these games at the beginning, the very first game of the year, even with Mike McDaniel, and as exciting as he is, have a tendency to be boring sometimes. And that's because I think that the Dolphins will be feeling this out and trying to look to establish that ground game. Usually by the time we get a few games in, I think that's when they are starting to be tantalized by doing a little bit more of the passing game, the Miami Dolphins. So they'll get there. But you're wondering, what new invention are we going to see? And I don't think we're going to see any new inventions, frankly, from Mike McDaniel or the Dolphins offense here. I think it is going to be set up as a slugfest, and we're going to be better than you.
Yeah, I think Alf, the thing that interests me as well is that Chris talked there about Pay and Leotu Latu on the outside. Latu, we all loved him coming out. I thought he was excellent as a rookie last year, but playing against the run has not been a strength. It wasn't a strength last year. Kwity Paye, one of the better edge defenders in terms of playing the run. But I think if you're going to try and attack that team, you're going to try and attack it through Latu, through Zaire Franklin, through Joe Backey, those linebackers, and down into that secondary of Cam Bynum and Nick Cross. I think that's where you're going to try and win the game. And I think it's trying to be physical. It's not allowing Latu, less so Pay, but especially Latu, to tee off on a Patrick Paul, on an Austin Jackson, if Jackson plays, especially as he hasn't done a lot over the last month or so, and certainly not against Larry Borum if Borum has to play. So I think guarding against that is going to be key. But I just think just running it down the throat of Latu and just say, look, stop us. If you're going to rush off the edge against our big 350-pound Patrick Paul, if you're going to do that with his big Bane face mask, great. You knock yourself out and try and do that. And we'll just run you over. We'll just run through your face and pick up chunk yardage that way. I think that's going to be really key, really critical for the Dolphins to set a tone early and just say to the Colts, you know what, we're just going to do this to you all day and you've got to try and stop it. And the moment you do stop it, we know all about Xavier Howard. We're just going to pick him apart. We know about Charvarius Ward. McDaniel and Ward were together in San Francisco. We know about you guys on the edge. Once we run you over, then we're going to throw on you. And I think that's how it'll play out.
But specifically with play action passing, because that's how that's what they'll do to make sure that they have some the time that they need back there in the pocket.
Yeah, and that's how you slow Latu down, is by running it over him, then play action in, and then hitting them over the top, because you suckered down Bynum and Scott into the box, because teams played so much cloud coverage last year that we just couldn't hit over the top. Everything had to be in that 15 to 20 yard intermediate, because we just weren't a threat to run the ball, and people weren't scared of us to run the ball. I think Gordon, I think the revamped offensive line, if everybody's healthy, I think it's an okay offensive line if everybody's healthy. Yes, there's question marks, which we've been through ad infinitum. Well, this week the rubber meets the road, and there's some good players on defensive line, and we've got to go out there and show them that we're good players too.
Now, let me ask you this, Simon, because you said it at the top of your first take about trying to get the offensive line some quick, easy wins. Is it going to be as simple once you look at that roster on the other side of the ball? Is it going to be as simple as trying to run inside zone? So you could set up that one-on-one opportunity to the field side with Tyreek or with Jalen Waddle. And as you get that safety off of the hash, you want to test Xavier Howard deep, don't you? Because he wasn't
Absolutely.
good. He wasn't good carrying guys deep when he was here last.
No, and
wouldn't most of your game plan be to try to isolate him at least one or two times early in that game?
Of course, but I think you do that by using the run game, which then brings those safeties down a bit and isolates it. Now, Xavier Howard almost certainly is not going to play man coverage against Tyreek Hill. He developed much more into a zone corner the older he got, for obvious reasons. Now, Lou Anarumo is the new defensive coordinator. There's going to come a point, if the Dolphins can establish the run game, where Lou has to say, I'm either going to have to bring Nick Cross down, I'm going to have to bring Cam Barner down, I'm going to have to take some chances outside. I've got experience outside. Ward and Howard know what they're doing outside. It's not like we're banging two rookies out here. Okay, so he'll be hoping to lean on that experience, and that's when Mike McDaniel can attack. But they've got to come out. You know, you want to see on that first drive, we all want to see drive down the field, score a touchdown. If they pick up 55 yards on the ground, mixing it up between Gordon and Achan and some jet sweep and whatever, fantastic, because that is just going to play into the absolute hands of Miami, who then want to try and pick out a Howard, pick off a Ward down the field, because I think they'll get chances to do so.
Three things about this. One, Lou Anarumo is going to be tested as far as his own patience goes, because him as a defensive coordinator, I think you're right. He will want to bring that safety down. He will want to give them some help if the Dolphins are able to establish the run. The second thing, though, is that the Dolphins can't, in establishing the run game, they can't rely on so much of this perimeter running that they've done over the years, because teams really are. I mean, I hate when people try and insist that an offense has been figured out, because that's never really true. But in this case, I think teams are onto the Dolphins' perimeter run game. It is how the Dolphins end up losing yards when they run the football and kind of moving the sticks back a little bit instead of getting closer to them. And so this is sort of the recipe that is established with defenses over the last season and a half, is to pull back, keep a cap on Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but also be aggressive to those outside runs, because that's how the Dolphins produce big plays. So the Dolphins can't do that. You know, that they can't rely on that. They have to brutalize them more or less and test the offensive line's abilities here. And then the third thing is, be careful if you're trying to target Xavier Howard. I say that because the Miami Dolphins offense is more timing oriented, more anticipation oriented than a lot of other offenses. It is more misdirection based than a lot of other offenses. And misdirection based offenses rely on defensive players being wrong to do the heavy lifting, schematically speaking. And Xavier Howard spent 2 years going against this offense every day in practice. So he is absolutely going to see concepts ahead of time. And the Dolphins don't run a lot of concepts in the passing game. That's sort of a myth. They come at a seldom few number of passing concepts from a lot of different directions, and they come and present different fronts, different motions, different looks in order to get to those same passing concepts. But Xavier Howard has so much experience facing the Dolphins in practice and seeing them up close that he's going to anticipate some of those concepts. And sometimes Tua is throwing almost blind into those concepts because they're so anticipation oriented. So be very careful about testing Xavier Howard, because he was out of football last year. He's over the hill. If you try to test him, you might be playing into his basically throwing into the teeth of what he can do, what he actually can do. Now, that said, if you do find that you can shake loose of the safeties at some point in the game. Yes, of course you're going to want to test Xavier Howard deep, but I don't know that the Colts are going to volunteer, that as an opening for you. I don't think they will. And in fact, you might want to stay away from him for the majority of this game.
Yeah, the other thing that Lou likes to do, Alf, is, and we know from watching his, those great Bengals defenses that he had when they went to the Super Bowl, runs a lot of cover zero, runs a lot of cover one double, those sorts of things. But also, he 8th in the league in simulated pressure, 4th in the league in 6-man pressures, and 7th in the league in 7-man pressures. Now, if you want to bring a 7-man pressure against Tua and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, good luck with that, Lou Anarumo. I doubt very much he'll do that. He's way too smart. But he likes to blitz, way more than the Colts have done previously, and even the iteration of the Colts that we played last year, the Matt Eberflus Colts before that, he blitzes way more than that. But I just think he's that mad scientist who likes to mess around on the back end. He likes to rotate coverages pre and post snap, all of those things, and a lot of disguise. And to Chris's point as well, which he made perfectly, and just to sort of add the cherry on top of the Xavier Howard cake, is that the eye work that Tua does is so good. The manipulation of the eyes, the looking off receivers and throwing, it's the Matthew Stafford Super Bowl throw that Tua does a lot of, looking one way, firing into. Xavier will have seen that as much as any cornerback in the NFL. He will not be taking that cheese, I don't believe, especially if they can, with the zone coverages and the mixing that Lou likes to do. I think it will be a very interesting way that he plays that secondary, and it goes back to the thing that we talked about right at the start. Stomp on their throat in the run game, and that will change by the very nature of how Lou Anarumo has to play defense. That will change things for the better for the Dolphins.
So this is setting up as a contest of who can be more disciplined.
Yeah,
it's basically, can the Dolphins stay disciplined and stick with the run game and attacking the defense at its weakness based on spacing and based on alignments and things like that? Can they stay disciplined, but can Lou Anarumo stay disciplined as well?
Yeah. All right, we're going to go to break, but before we do, let me tell you about Underdog. Football is back, and Underdog is the best place to make picks and win money all season long. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, and more. Get your picks right, and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. You can play with as little as $1. Now, there's a few plays I kind of like, but 2 kind of stood out, and I think that they go to game script. Malik Washington, 17.5 receiving yards. I think higher. I think that Tua is going to look at his slot receiver being Malik Washington, and I think he's going to gravitate more toward him than when it's Nick Westbrook-Akine. We saw it all during camp. We saw it in the preseason. I don't think that his chemistry with Nick Westbrook-Akine is still there. So 17.5 receiving yards for Malik Washington. It's almost too good to be true. And here's another one. I would guess that Devon Achane is going to be on some type of pitch count, which means that the touches, they only have 2 healthy backs right now. And whoever they bring up, which is likely going to be Jeff Wilson. Here's another one. 27.5 rushing yards for Ollie Gordon. I think he could be the headliner in this game, meaning he's going to get maybe 12 touches. And if he gets 10 in the run game, I don't think 27.5 yards is that tough.
But also,
those are the 2 that I like.
If he starts picking up yards early, you just want to keep feeding him. McDaniel's had that issue where he's gone away from the hot hand in the running game. Going to Chris's point, he's got to be consistent with staying with that and not to think, I'm just going to start throwing it around. The one caveat to Malik is that obviously Kenny Moore as the nickel is probably their best secondary player and certainly has been historically over the last few years. That's a tough ask for anybody. But what that does, Nick Westbrook-Akine on Cam Bynum, for example, or this is where you would hope that Darren Waller might play some snaps, because you get Darren Waller running against Joe Backey, you get him running against those secondary guys. That is those safeties, Nick Cross and Daniel Scott and those guys. That is where you win, and it's trying to find those matchups. But I can see Ollie Gordon having a Jonathan Taylor type 100+ yards impact if Mike McDaniel can stay consistent and patient to the run game.
So download the app today and sign up with the promo code 3YARDS. That's the number 3 yards to score $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. That's a promo code 3 yards. The number 3 yards. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Will you be next? Underdog, make picks, win money. And now we're back. All right, and now we're going to talk about when the Dolphins are on defense, when the Colts have the ball. Not until too long ago, I think it's been 3 weeks, they named Daniel Jones as their quarterback. Some people were rejoicing. Some Dolphin fans were like, okay, this is pretty good. Others were thinking, wait a minute, is it that good? I don't know where to stand on this. I will say this. Anthony Richardson had more, I think he had a better opportunity to flabbergast the Dolphins on any given Sunday. And I know he wasn't good last year when they played him without Tua. But he made the plays late, especially with his legs. Is he capable of having that one game, that one in every 5 weeks, where he just annihilates you? He has done it before. Danny Jones, I guess, is a much more consistent sort, but I don't know where to stand in between these two, whether one is better than the other. Simon, did the Dolphins get the right matchup here or the wrong matchup with Daniel Jones?
Historically, we've always been hurt, I think, by mobile quarterbacks that can, especially with our pass rush, which is so upfield, and sometimes, just maintaining edge discipline against mobile quarterbacks is so hard to do when you've got those kind of Bentleys on the edge that we've got. Now, not saying that Daniel Jones isn't mobile either, because he most patently is, but historically, the thing that I found that worries Daniel Jones a lot is pressure. Weave runs an awful lot of simulated pressure. And I think he doesn't often come. And I do wonder if he starts to come more solely because we know it's the sort of thing that can get into Daniel Jones's head, the ghost that he might see. And I think, again, as on offense, trying to establish the run early, I think getting Chop and getting Chubb and getting Phillips and getting Sealer, getting in and having a few early knockdowns, a few early hits, making him feel the pressure, forcing him to step up into the pocket where you've got a Jordan Brooks who's going to come up and smack you in the mouth. I think beating Daniel Jones around early is as important as it is to establish a running game on offense. Not because he's going to get into a rhythm, because he's going to pick you apart, because he's not that sort of quarterback. But I think that it's just historically something that he struggled with. And if you can smack him around a bit, I think the interceptions will come. The one thing you don't want to do is it's a veteran offensive line. Generally, there's some very good players on there. Quentin Nelson's going to be a Hall of Famer. Bernard Ryman got the $100 million contract in the offseason. And Jonathan Taylor is a stud, as we know. We tried to trade for him 18 months ago, 2 years ago, whatever. So yeah, that's not what you want. And I think much as we want to establish the run, I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly what the Colts try and do, is come out and establish a bit of Jonathan Taylor and take the pressure, Chris, off of Daniel Jones, who kind of feels like the smallest dwarf or the tallest dwarf, even in this quarterback race that the Colts have been having.
Well, as I said before, who lost the quarterback or who lost the battle between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson? The Indianapolis Colts did.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really tough quarterback battle to have, and say that you're a serious team for the year. And I think that we're probably a little bit too caught up in the nuances of whether we drew the right quarterback between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, because I look at it from a broad perspective. The strength of that the offense is going to be more in the hands of Michael Pittman and Tyler Warren, Josh Downs, guys like that. And so the guy that you want playing is going to be the guy who can distribute the ball into the hands of the strength of the offense, and not the guy who's being asked to do it all himself. I would put it to you this way: between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, who do you trust more, our front seven or our back four, back five, right? If you trust the front seven more, then I think you would rather face Anthony Richardson, because Anthony Richardson is trying to beat your front seven. He's trying to beat it with his legs. He's trying to beat it by scrambling out of the pocket. And he's trying to escape pressure and things like that. But if that's the strength of your defense, you take that battle. You don't want the battle that you don't want if you are the Miami Dolphins and you have just lost, Javon Holland, and you've just lost, Jalen Ramsey, and you're going with this patchwork secondary with which, as Simon said before, we talked about that ad infinitum. So if you have this bad secondary, what you don't want is to fight the battle in the secondary between those guys and guys like Michael Pittman and Tyler Warren and Josh Downs. You want to take the ball out of the hands or take it out of that arena. And I think that Daniel Jones does put it more in the arena of our secondary versus their skill players because he'll distribute it. So the battle is really going to be fought between Daniel Jones and the simulated pressures because he does not do well against the blitz. But Miami's also not going to blitz a lot. Like, that's not Anthony Weaver's style, I don't think. I think it's going to be a pressure 4 all day. It come at you from different ways, and simulated pressures is definitely a thing. But I think that it's going to be about whether you have actually managed to throw Daniel Jones off in his processing. It was easy to throw Anthony Richardson off. I hate to say it, but it was last year. He was brutally bad in that game against the Dolphins a year ago. In the first half, you thought this guy can't continue in the second half. It's that bad. It really is. He made a few plays by the end. They scored 16 points. Let's not say that he pulled up any trees. I think that they probably drew. If there is a wrong quarterback, which I don't think there really is a wrong quarterback between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. But if there is a wrong quarterback, then Daniel Jones is the one that they drew, and that's the wrong one. I would have rather faced Anthony Richardson. But it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter.
But the skill position players are good, Al. Michael Pittman's a good receiver. I think Alec Pierce led the league last year in yards per reception with 22.7 or something. Josh Downs is a really good player. Adonai Mitchell is really fast. And you got the Tyler Warren, you got Moani Cox, you got Jonathan Taylor. The skill position players are good, and if you don't want to let Jones, because he has historically been able to get into a rhythm and hit receivers playing in New York who have probably not been in the round as good as those players have been. And I think that's really important. And that receiving core, as we know, will test our very, very, very makeshift secondary with, as we've discussed,
and Simon, I think also it deserves to be said that, and this is going to be the case for pretty much every game. But if you sit back and if you're not physically challenging those receivers, and you're allowing them free access to run and find those holes between the zones, that was my concern in the preseason. Was there wasn't enough physical challenging of the skill players by Miami secondary, no matter who was on the field, first string, second string, third string, whatever. There wasn't enough of that. There was a lot of free access, and guys were finding pretty wide open holes in the zone. Yeah. And so we're going to start to see now if that was just preseason, as it often is, or whether this could potentially be a real problem. And if it is a real problem, then even Daniel Jones can distribute that ball to those skill position players in those wide open spaces between the zones with free access running into them and do some damage. And so that's the real thing to watch.
Yeah. 100%.
Now, Jonathan Taylor is, he's a headline back, and the Dolphins have faced a few in the last 2 years, but they haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher since the 2022 season. I think the streak is at 32 right now of consecutive games that haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher. Is it as simple as just stopping him on first down so you could maneuver the game script into third and longs to get Daniel Jones behind the sticks? Because if you stop Jonathan Taylor, on first down, I really don't see how they could get their offense uncoiled, really. I don't think they could get out of first gear if they can't get Jonathan Taylor going in on first down. So is it as simple as that? Just devote your resources to first down to try to win the down and try to get them out of just giving the ball to Jonathan Taylor incessantly for 25 minutes. For 25 times, because if I had to write the script of how the Colts beat the Dolphins, I don't see any other way than with a superstar Jonathan Taylor game. Am
It's
I
the
wrong?
same script. It's the same script pretty much as we talked about the Dolphins beating the Colts, isn't it? It's established the running game with one of the most slept-on players in the NFL. You know, I was going through some of the Colts tape last weekend, Monday night. Some of his 2024 tape is so good. He's still such a phenomenal running back. And nobody's been talking, you know, people talk about Saquon, talk about Derrick Henry, talk about James Cook. Nobody talks about Jonathan Taylor. And he's still a top 3, 4 running back in this league. You know, didn't even feature in the top 100 players. And you look at how bad their offensive line was with the injuries last season. You just look at what he was able to do. And obviously the fact that Anthony Richardson was so poor, he is still an elite running back. And again, yeah, you want to get every team into 3rd and long, more so with a team that's being helmed by Daniel Jones. But what you cannot allow is for Jonathan Taylor to start running roughshod all over you, because that will be a long day for everybody.
No, for me, I think bigger key is going to be, well, in particular with Jonathan Taylor, I will mention this. Getting to the outside with his speed is something that you're going to want to keep an eye on, because some of these corners that you're going to throw out there during the game, if you're going to throw Jack Jones out there and things like that, you know, I don't know. I don't know that you wouldn't want to challenge them in tackling. I think that Miami secondary, that's one of the things that you're going to want to see if they can do is tackle. But I think that if you're looking at what the Colts can do on offense that could potentially win the game, is I would look at those tight ends with Tyler Warren and Mo Alley Cox, you know, and as Mo Alley Cox is, I assume, playing, right? So,
yeah,
and he is a good tight end, actually, taking aside Tyler Warren. So you're going to have those two guys, and where can you challenge Miami's defense, even if Miami is pulling back the secondary and trying to bail, because they know they're weak in the secondary, and I think that that's kind of a known. But if you can find weak links in the linebackers in terms of coverage, you know, Willie Gay was not a strong cover guy in the preseason that we've seen so far. He made a lot of plays in camp, but he's not been a strong cover guy. You're going to start testing whether those 3 interceptions that Tyrell Dodson produced last year are real, you know, really belie actual ability in coverage, because those tight ends can find you and take advantage that way. And if you're weak, like you can have everything be right, and if you have a weak link in your linebacker coverage, it doesn't matter. And that's what's so scary sometimes about the way that the defense plays out, and the way the defense, you know, left a lot of holes out there and a lot of wide open spaces for people is you know, one guy, a linebacker, just you know, he's playing eyes on the quarterback, but if he doesn't see it, then the guy's wide open. And you know, the guy that you're sneaking over there into that little hook zone is wide open, and you've got a 3rd and long conversion pretty easy. You know, and it looked too easy at times in the preseason. So I would really watch those two tight ends against our guys in the off-ball linebackers. So we'll see.
All right, it's time to pick the game. Before we get out of here, I'll go first. I think Dolphins have a lot of things going for them in this game. It's a dome. It's week 1. Tua's numbers, somebody posted the numbers on ESPN the other day. Tua's numbers on week 1 historically have been absolutely great. This team hasn't necessarily exploded, but they did have one explosion against the Chargers in a dome. So I do think that offense is going to be uncorked a little bit, and they're going to have some moments. I don't think it's going to be a runaway. I think there'll be some anxious moments in the second half, but I got Miami kind of winning kind of comfortably here, 27-16. Your thoughts, Simon?
I'm going to be purveyor of doom to go to purveyor of destiny. I have Miami winning this fairly comfortably, 34-17.
Wow. You know, I just don't see this in the first game. I don't see Miami really uncorking on offense. And I think that it's going to be tight. It's going to be nerve-wracking, and the Dolphins are going to look to establish the run and try and win with basics. And so this is going to turn into something like a 17-16 slugfest. And I think the Dolphins will come out on top. They should come out on top. But this is going to end up being one of those. I'm thinking of some of the contests between the Dolphins and the Patriots over the years. Between Mike McDaniel and the Patriots, is they end up kind of playing a little tight, a little close to the vest, and I think that you'll see that in week 1 before the Dolphins start to get into more of a rhythm and start opening things up a little bit. So 17-16 is the way I've got it.
I just go back to last year's game and how we should have beaten them comfortably with Tyler Huntley at quarterback, and we just ended up muffing it with our own stupid mistakes. The big holding call on the Mostert run, the ridiculous 4th down, the fumble by Ingold, the fumble by Mostert, and it's just like we should have,
the score was 16-10, and Mostert fumbled inside of your own 20 to give them 1 touchdown, and Ingold you fumbled inside of their 20 to take 1 off the board.
Had the massive Mostert run that got called back by the hold on the perimeter. That was, when we grabbed back the momentum in that game. So, yeah, look, I'm going to be purveyor of destiny next week. So we're fixing for a win.
If I had more faith that the Dolphins offense was already in rhythm, coming out of training camp, already in rhythm during the preseason, if we had more flashing signs of that, then I'd go a different way in the prediction. But we don't. And Tyreek Hill has been out of practice for a while. Devon Achane has been out of practice for a while. These guys are only just now coming back, right this week in the coming days before the game. And, so I think that this could be a little tight, a little sloppy at times on offense.
Given the Colts skill position players, I think if they had an upper echelon quarterback, a Jared Goff, a Matthew Stafford, a Jordan Love, I think we're looking at a very different game. Because of their receivers versus our secondary, which is a huge strength against a massive weakness. But
the offensive line to actually put it into that realm.
Absolutely. And it'll be a fascinating welcome to the NFL moment for those rookie interior defensive linemen. Kenneth Grant going against Quentin Nelson. It will be like, this is a guy that's ending up in the Hall of Fame, and he's still in the, he's not on the back 9 of his career. He's still top of his game. So that will be interesting. But I think, it's Daniel Jones, and I think that might just be enough for the Dolphins. And actually, I think it will be comfortably enough for the Dolphins.
All right, we're going to call it right here. The next time we talk to you will be on Monday. We'll have results in hand, and we'll give you a recap of this game, Dolphins Colts.
We've got to keep a score, surely, this season. Now we're on video. We've got to keep a score. You need a little blackboard behind you, Alf.
Do we ever revisit these?
Do we have what?
Do we ever revisit these?
We should do. From this point forwards, Alpha's going to have a black. Well, I'll get a blackboard and I'll stick it by a whiteboard, stick it behind her, and we'll have scores.
Yeah, and we'll just keep track. And we'll keep track every single week. Yeah, let's do that.
Exactly. And then at the end of the season, somebody will win a prize, which will be I don't know, whatever.
All right. Talk to you on Monday.